What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm James. This is Mechanical Mayhem, and this is part 4 of my Mechwarrior 5 Clans playthrough, where we just are experiencing and getting fully immersed into the story of the campaign and the missions that we have to go on. This is part 4, so we're making our way through Santander to hunt down Valasek and his pirate ilk, so we can have a nice staging platform for the invasion proper. So let's strap in, prepare for drop, and get to it. Alrighty, here we are. Part 4. We just did Pirates Bay, which means now we have 2 missions to choose from. And I go from least weight in terms of tonnage limit to max weight of tonnage limit. So whatever has the lesser weight, I go with first. So we're doing target acquisition. Now, things do start to kind of ramp up a little bit. Not that we're going to be facing assault mechs or anything like that on our own, but we've gotten a taste for the enemy. Now we're going to try and pick them apart. So this particular mission is going to have us basically doing recon. It's one of the few times that we prioritize not engaging and just scanning things in this game. In fact, I think it's kind of the only time we really don't want to engage stuff. But if you're not careful, you're going to have a lot of fights on your hands. So you definitely want to do the mission objective and keep a fair distance, just because we're not going to have too much tonnage on our end to compete with things. Now, with that said, we're just being sent in to investigate and validate what is where in terms of what does Valasek have in terms of storage amongst these different homestead areas. So I like this setup of the missions. We have to remember we are part of a greater whole of the Silver Jaguars amongst Beta Galaxy. So while we're doing stuff, there are other stars doing other operations as well. But at the same time, it's not like the entirety of Smoke Jaguar is bearing down on this one planet. I like to think of it more so as kind of taking care of the periphery areas. This is beyond Inner Sphere's official borders, you could say, and getting prepped and ready for the full-scale jump into Inner Sphere territory, because that's more or less what it is. So we can see our jump weight is 175 tons, and we are at 165 tons. So you could go in a little bit light. You don't necessarily, that I'm aware of anyway, because I did go in light in my first playthrough, you don't necessarily get anything special for it as far as I can tell. So you might as well try and meet the weight overall. So that is what I'm going to be doing. I'm more or less getting the squad set up, as it were. So with that said, have you picked up this game yet? Played it? Are you interested in it? Let me know in the comments for anybody who stumbles across this. So I'm going to apply the loadout of that alternate configuration for that Arctic Cheetah. And we are going to do an upgrade, I believe. I forget, I think to the Kit Fox. I think what we're going to do is replace the Kit Fox with a second Viper. The Viper has grown on me, honestly. It's the primary configuration I'm not the biggest fan of personally, but its alternate configurations are pretty decent. It has decent speed and armor for a 40-ton medium mech, and I do believe we are going to put it in a non-prime configuration. I say I believe because in the mission I forget if it actually shows it as in that configuration or not, but it should. So as you can see, in order to do the equipment, it just has to say, hey, you need to spend this much currency so we can make the configuration, and there it is. So just got to make sure we spent our experience points. Remember, I am prioritizing evasion here because I just want to go that extreme with max evasion before anything else, and it's quite helpful. Making sure we have our research on. I'm pretty sure I got research going, and I will be starting to try and build up more components. So I need mech and equipment components for armor damage reduction, which is definitely one of the researches I want to get going sooner rather than later. Anyways, don't back out too far as you go to the main menu. I always do that. Now we are getting ready for drop. So let's get in there. This is an interesting mission because we're going to have a little combat and a lot of maneuvering, and it's at night. So that's pretty fun. We will also see more obvious, in case you weren't really paying attention to it too much on the radar and the battle map, we're going to see a more obvious evolution of our boundaries for the mission. So every mission has boundaries in which if you go too far towards the boundary, you'll see on the radar it's like a red line. You go too far, you hit that, you have to turn around or the mission will end in a failure. So we're going to see the fact that pretty much in every mission, that boundary will evolve and change as updates to the objectives happen and everything. So I found that kind of interesting. It kind of helps you maybe not get so lost, theoretically, in terms of going the complete opposite direction, although I'm sure you can manage it. I think I managed it in one of my first playthroughs in one of the missions, so you do still have to pay attention, but you head towards the nav point and you do what the objectives say. What I find interesting is it's night, and when you put on night vision, the stars light up in the sky. It's something silly perhaps, but I like the little added touch of detail. I wouldn't have noticed if it didn't do that, but the fact that it does it is a nice little added pop to the game. I'm not a one that make use of night vision too much. There'll definitely be a couple missions where I'll make use of it more so, but this isn't necessarily one of those missions. So there is a patrol coming. One thing that could be improved upon a little bit is a little bit more obviousness of the mission objective of the patrols. Now it will be pretty obvious. We'll see a bunch of red skulls, and that's what we want to avoid, is a patrol that basically follows the river. But like right now we can't see it, and the whole idea is to avoid detection. We have a detection meter, sure, but we want to avoid that detection. So it would just be nicer to see where the stuff is. Like we see it right there, finally they pop in and we get to see where they're at. So they're down there, which is where we would want to be, but as we noticed, they're on patrol and they can go past the boundary because they're not the player trying to do an objective. So once they pretty much clear the boundary, we'll be safe to press on. Looks like they are moving on. No detection. Could we take those? Probably. I think a Jenner is a part of it, and like other light mechs. We're not necessarily dealing with a Steiner Scout Lance, aka an Assault Lance, so we would be alright, but the goal is to avoid detection, at least the optional goal. So there are two patrols. That's the first one we avoided. We have to avoid detection by the second one as well, and we need to advance to the river and make our way to the different homesteads. Now here, aside from shooting for no reason, it didn't alert them, so that's good. What I end up typically doing is I'll go and make the scans myself. I'll have them guard a location nearby so they don't accidentally trigger something and it's just me, and it's easier to maneuver because it can get pretty tight in what you got to do. So I like to try and do that, and I do also set them to hold fire. Not that I think that they'll try and chase something down, but I just want them to sit tight and not do anything. Just be sure you have them on weapons free if you want them on weapons free once you're done being all stealthy in whatever situation you might be in. So the Viper, luckily enough, has jump jets to make use of this very tactic to kind of come in through the back door a little bit, an unintentional back door. Now you want to be careful because you'll see in scan mode we have a barrier here. It's like an alarm fence, I guess you could say, like an invisible fence for dogs. Only this is a scanning fence to alert defenders within a homestead that, hey, there's unwanted activity nearby. Granted, it's not so much it's proximity and it's not. When I say it is and it's not, once you get within the area of, basically the red line, it'll trigger. But you can see I'm walking pretty close and it's not doing anything. You don't want to tempt it. You do want to try and keep a wide berth because, well, it's better off that way than tempting fate. And that's one of the homesteads. We basically have to do that a few times, and that's more or less the mission. So we have a second patrol coming in, and as such, I am keeping an eye on where they are. I see where they're coming. So we're actually going to about face and go right where I came from to hide away from this patrol. We basically just want the patrol to pass us. Again, we could probably take them, but you don't want necessarily to have excess damage on yourself if you can avoid it. And as such, I am trying to do the mission as intended here, which is to avoid detection. And as you can see, I have them on hold fire. I'm having them follow me. That way they do not accidentally trigger the patrol to find us. So I don't know what AI jank, if you will, can happen in that regard, but we don't want to risk it. Now, what's interesting is they kind of disappeared. I think they basically checked in or near that homestead and then made their way down the river because there they go. We could have engaged them, probably could have taken them, but that would have resulted in a optional objective being failed. And rather than do that, I want to get all the objectives completed. So we're going to let them walk about the business. I think get a little bit further away, and we're just going to keep on moseying because we have things to scan. So now the allies of my star, or my star mates, I guess you could just say, are in hold fire mode. I'm keeping a mental note of that so I can have them be weapons free once I'm done being all stealthy. So I'm going to have them again set up shop somewhere because I don't want them trying to follow me, even though I did the wrong command right there. You can tell when they're going to go somewhere because you can see that little shield icon on somewhere that you clicked, which is good. Now, luckily, it really is just you breaking the beam, as it were, to trigger those alarms, because I'm going to just make a complete blunder in about 2 seconds, and I'm going to just blitz through a piece of terrain, not thinking until after I hit it, and be like, oh, I really hope that's okay. Just like that. So, whoops. It's okay, though. It must have been the wind, and we continue the scanning process. So, we're basically scanning these to identify what's inside to confirm what needs to be destroyed. That's the important business. As you can see, I chose a different configuration for the Viper from last time, and I'll pretty much stay with this configuration for the Viper for the rest of it, because it's not bad. Although I will be adding a chain fire weapon group in the future, just as a spoiler, I suppose, because it is very handy to help keep heat down a little bit. This is a pretty hot running variant of the Viper. So this is a particularly tricky, at least for me, because I'm bad and I'm in a medium. This is a particularly tricky, what's the word I'm looking for? Homestead to scan. There we go. So I am going to again have my star mates hold position somewhere because I do not want them too close. And then I'm going to jump jet around like it's nobody's business to try and avoid these laser gate stuffs. Jump jetting in mechs has always been a little bit troublesome at times. Momentum is a bit odd. Your facing and what you're doing can be a bit odd. Now, in my first playthrough, I stayed on the ground and just hugged the rocks and I didn't trigger anything. But I wanted to be extra careful and have a bit easier of a time maneuvering, so instead, I am getting my altitude on and I'm jumping around because I have jump jets, might as well make use of them, right? Right. So that's what we're doing. Now, the reason the, I guess, laser alert posts are flashing is because we're in scan mode and we can see them. And it's basically giving us an alert that, hey, they're active. I haven't tried, but I'm sure if you destroy them, it'll trigger the alarm because, well, you destroyed it, and that's not good. So I don't suspect they are blinking like that or pulsing like that in scan mode to let you, you can do something with them, but rather that, hey, pay attention, you're getting close to this thing. That's my guess, and I'm sticking to it. Now, with that said, there won't be any more patrols to worry about, at least in the time I'm taking to do this. I don't know if you take an extra long amount of time if there will be patrols to worry about, but I haven't seen any except those two in different playthroughs, so that is some information to have, put it to you that way. Now here I am just being careful and hugging the right side, trying to stay away from that laser fence, taking it a little bit slow, a little bit careful. Because if you do trigger this, and I triggered one of these my first playthrough, didn't think I did, but I didn't have my star holding position either, so that it might have been a case of too many mechs too close or whatever. But if you do trigger it, mechs will power up that are stationed within the homestead. They'll power up to fight you. They're basically on standby should the alarm trigger. It's not a lot, but every time that happens, if it happens at every homestead, it's going to hurt your armor, and then you're going to use up ammunition, and you just don't want to do that in this mission. So yeah, there is not a lot of combat, but the reward is that you're not going to be banged up once you finish off these objectives, which can make this a pretty interesting mission, because typically, it's all about get in there, blow everything up, scan some stuff if you need to, and move on. Here, we're being a lot more clinical about what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is basically bleed out Valisek's group and force them to become desperate, force them out into the open, flush them out basically by denying them their assets. And that's what we're doing. So we're going to have an aerospace support here. We're not calling it in, but rather we're getting targeting data, so when they make the attack run, they're just going to blow up when they need to blow up, which is pretty cool, very militaristic, makes a lot of sense. While we are here and we could just cut through things, it's a much more surgical strike with the aircraft, much faster, and doesn't commit us to a standing war of attrition, because to burn these down with mechs would result in return fire from the enemy, because they'll fight, they can raise the alarm and then generate the patrols to come back. Not that that happens, it hasn't happened to me, but yeah, you don't want that to happen, so aerospace being used to bomb it makes a lot of sense. And we just found out that this last thing is a bunch of people. Valisek is holding people up like livestock as prisoners. And this is completely unacceptable for the clans, including Clan Smoke Jaguar. It's about honorable combat, right? Sure, they're free birth, but at the same time, so is the majority of the clan's actual population. It's the warrior caste that's predominantly Trueborn by a vast amount, right? So the goal of Trueborn is to lead and protect their clan as a whole, and it's the ultimate kind of vision of the Crusaders of the clans, that Kerensky's goal was to conquer Terra and have the clans rule and put an end to the barbaric, continual, never-ending wars of succession wars and the like that the Innisphere has. It's not about wiping out non-clanners, and definitely not about wiping out non-Trueborn. So the fact that Valisek has just taken prisoners like this and is using them basically as livestock or as bait or whatever you want to think of them as, is definitely something most disgusting to the clans. And I appreciate that at a touch, because Smoke Jaguar especially, his showcase is so aggressive and fights everything all the time because they're very aggressive Crusaders, but they're not here to slaughter people for no reason. Despite what happens later on in the story of the Operation Revival, sure, I get that, but they're really not here to just go ahead and level everything to the ground, because they're trying to conquer and rule and basically populate this area and keep it populated. So there's an important distinction there. Now, this attack run isn't going to light up the prisoners. This is going to light up the munition depot stuff that we have flagged as a target. This, of course, is basically rattling a hornet's nest with a stick, so we're going to have to be prepared for combat because of that. So, again, on the radar, we can see our theater of operations for where we're allowed to go has changed again. And I will say this, it's not in a lot of missions, but this particular mission, especially prior to the hotfix that actually made the fight here a little bit easier, and it's not necessarily a difficulty thing, but just the fact that they made it a little bit easier. It's the fact that the enemy can maneuver, and so can our allies. Our own starmates can maneuver past the boundaries. It's not like it's an invisible wall you can't walk past. You can. And our allies can do it, my own star can do it, and the enemy can do it, but I can't. So if something's going to be going off the grid, my starmates can pursue it, but I have to kind of hang back and try and pepper it from a distance because I will trigger a failure if I go out of bounds for too long. Which I get, I just feel like if there's going to be a bounds, the enemy shouldn't be able to go too far beyond it, no matter what they are, because that's kind of making it hard for me to do much of anything against them at times. So, as you can see, this particular configuration of Viper runs hot, and this is when I realized, you know what, I gotta have a chain fire weapon group because this isn't gonna cut it. But we're hitting pretty hard, right? When I first did this, in my first playthrough, I didn't really have alternate Omnipod loadouts unlocked for my Starmates to use. I don't know if I was even using this configuration on the Viper yet because I didn't realize I could unlock them. I just wasn't paying attention. I was just running with what we had. So, obviously, depending upon your viewpoint of things and how you like to play, that can be less beneficial for you. And for me, it definitely made this part of the mission take a little bit longer, feel a little bit more dangerous than it does now, because while yes, we are on a different difficulty for that, this is why I decided to do the chain fire. But you have to save, you have to hit confirm, which I believe I forgot to do there, so I had to do it again. Make sure you confirm that you're changing your weapon groups, because it won't do it otherwise. And make sure you hit the top box that says chain fire. Now, what that means, by the way, is when I do the chain fire shooting, which is weapon group 3, it will fire one laser at a time. So I can do a full alpha strike of lasers, and then to help conserve heat and have it cool down more, once the laser's ready again, I can fire one laser at a time, which will definitely help the heat generation. But yeah, we are on the easiest difficulty for this playthrough, as I have mentioned in the very beginning. I'm not trying to hide that. Not because we can't do it on higher, I can, but because I want us to really focus on the story at hand and not have to worry about playing like it's MWO, Mechwarrior Online, and peeking and shooting and, you know, dodge, duck, deep dive, and dodge. Anyways, here's the Sokol. This is a big VTOL. You can just shoot at it, but its weakness are its rotors, its rotor engines, so you can target each one, and that's what you do. You target each one, and you have you and your Starmates try and fire at it, because we want to blow it up. And this, when the game first came out, like that one was just an explosion. So we gotta do one more, and this thing is toast. When this first came out, this was a much harder fight. It had much more health. We're at this lower tonnage, and there's the chain fire to full effect. But yeah, we have this tonnage that we have. The Sokol had a lot more health and was a bit more aggressive. I think I had one, maybe two ejections on my star when we took it out. Plus, it was also flying outside the boundary, and I couldn't pursue it. So there was that. But in any case, we're here to experience the story, most importantly of all. I will be doing stuff on stream, and I will be trying to bring some of it here in regards to an expert run soon of Mechwarrior 5 Clans, so you can check out the stream for that, or just wait for me to try and upload stuff, presuming the internet cooperates for the stream itself. But that was the mission. Target acquisition. I believe, or target acquired. I already forget the names of them because they're not super catchy, edgy name stuff. They're just things you're doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in any case, here we are with the salvage components. I've been prioritizing salvage components for my upgrades, which is why I can get a total of 480 of them right now. And I will be paying more attention to how many I'm pulling of what. But right now I'm just trying to build up a general stockpile so we can do more research. That's the idea. So we are going to do the, I believe, armor damage reduction research, get it in the queue, because we do have several things in line to research, and we could change the priority. I'm not too worried about that right now. We just want things to get started. That way we have stuff constantly researching as we go through missions. We don't have to worry about it. But yeah, we're just getting our house in order, as it were. Seeing the available research, what we're researching, we're unlocking some milestones. What's great about the milestones is that it's a lot of mech chassis experience. So that can really help you unlock things, which is definitely good. So like here, I'm just going to, I believe, unlock all of the Omnipod sets for the Arctic Cheetah because, I don't know, why not, right? So that's what I'm doing. We have the mech chassis experience to do so we're doing it. Even though we are cycling out of the Arctic Cheetah at this time, it is still a worthwhile thing to consider. It is just the fact that you have this mech chassis experience. Now, the Vipers are proving pretty decent. Like I said, they've grown on me. It's just the primary configuration I'm not a big fan of. Here we are still holding off on spending any of the experience because I am trying to do max evasion because I'm weird like that. But that is part 4. We have just dealt a blow to the supplies of Valasek and his ilk, and we will be further flushing them into the open and conquering this planet, justly and thoroughly for Smoke Jaguar and the beginning of the invasion of the Inner Sphere in earnest. So thanks for stopping by, and until next time, take care.